Coming to you from the Deep South, this is the Blue Collar Leadership Podcast. High-impact leadership is not reserved for leaders, and it has nothing to do with your position, title, or rank. However, it does have everything to do with your character. It's time to climb to the next level and beyond, personally and professionally. Now, let's start making it happen with your host, Max Story.
Hey guys, thanks for joining me today. Today we're on part 9 of the Blue Collar Leadership Leading from the Front Line series. So today, chapter 9 is titled, Your Potential is Unlimited. And that's regardless of who you are and where you are. And one thing you need to know is, regardless of where you are, where you've been, where you're going, if you want to develop a positive mindset and positive influence and you want people to see you as a high impact team player, one thing you got to know is you should always be grateful, but never satisfied. And the reason that is, people who are not grateful, they're always moaning, groaning, whining, and complaining. There's nothing about moaning, groaning, whining, and complaining that's going to help you move in the right direction or move in a better direction. So I got a quote here for you from Charles Koch. He says, "When we fully develop our potential, we create superior value for others. And that in turn helps give meaning to our lives. Life is pretty empty without passion for what we are doing. What a tragedy to reach the end of your life and only be able to say, I got by without having to do much." You think about that. I know there's a whole lot of folks out there in the world, blue collar, white collar, whatever collar, and I've been around them a lot, and I hear them at work. I'm just here to get a check. I'm just here to get paid. Do my 8, hit the gate, all that kind of stuff. That's not being grateful. It's not being a high impact team player. But when I say you should always be grateful but never satisfied, that's really talking about having a positive attitude and mental mindset about where you are, regardless of where that is. But you don't have to be satisfied because your potential is unlimited. You decide where you're going, when you're going, how you're going. You do that based on every choice you ever make. So you're standing wherever you are and you're looking up to where you want to be. So I'm always grateful here, but I'm looking there because I'm never satisfied. I'm always striving to do more, be more, and have more. And you can do that, but you've got to become more valuable, which means you got to make choices that cause you to be more valuable. And the thing is, whenever you get to where you actually want to go, you're going to be right back at the bottom. You're going to be at a place where you should always be grateful, but never satisfied. And now you're standing on the next step, looking up toward a higher step. But a lot of folks think that other people are the problem. Other people are holding me back. That's about the farthest thing from the truth that I can imagine. There's nobody holding you back except you. Once you figure that out, you can do something about it. As long as you think the rest of the world's holding you back, well, I'm going to tell you what they got planned for you. It's not much. You better plan it for yourself. But I want to tell you something here. It says, there's a lot of folks out there. They're not on a mission heading somewhere. They're on a job headed nowhere. And I heard this saying a long time ago. A lot of these folks, everywhere they go, there's always, all they are is negative because they're never grateful. They're never satisfied. They want more, but they're never grateful for where they're at. So they're always complaining. And I heard this quote a long time ago, and it says, it goes like this. It says, if Bob has a problem everywhere Bob goes, then Bob is the problem. It's common sense, right? Think about it. If Bob has a problem everywhere Bob goes, then Bob is the problem. To understand that, you have to look in the mirror. If you think everywhere you go is a problem, it's some leadership truth for you. You're probably the problem. And that could mean you're in the wrong places, or you haven't developed your character to align with the character and the values of the people you are working for, one way or the other. It's always about our character and our values do they align with other people's character and values? I'm going to tell you, if they don't, there's going to be lots of problems. They may have higher level character than you, or you may have higher level character than them. So I want to share a story with you, and this is straight from the book. So a lot of the stuff I share on this 30-part series is not straight from the book, but what I'm about to share with you is. And it's a good story, and I remember it like it was yesterday. But I want to say something. Too many people can't see they're the problem. In one company where I supported those on the front lines for multiple years with lean process improvement and leadership development, I remember a person who was not happy about her job. And this is a story I want to tell you from the book. So we were in the middle of a 1-week lean leadership certification class where I taught many of the principles I'm sharing in this podcast and in the book with you, and many that I'm not. There are far too many to put in a small book like Blue Collar Leadership, or really for any book in that matter. But this lady, she came up at one of the breaks, as many of those in my classes did at the time. And she wanted to tell me something she had been thinking about after hearing some of the leadership lessons that I was speaking about. And she'd been reflecting on who she was and where she was. And I'm sure she had already heard me talk about Bob and Bob's problem, which we all know now is Bob. I used to say that all the time because, especially in the blue-collar workforce, frontline, entry-level folks, especially those people who are not satisfied, but they've been in the same job year after year after year, it's because they're not grateful. It's because they're like Bob. Everywhere Bob goes, Bob has a problem. When Bob's got a problem, Bob's not going to shine. He's going to be whining. So this lady proceeded to tell me how she had worked at the company that I was in for many years, the spot that I was actually teaching her. She had worked there for many years, but she was unhappy before, and she had left for another job at another company. When she got her new job in a new company, she was happy at first, but she said she quickly became unhappy. So she asked to return to her old job, which is where I was at, speaking on leadership. So she had been there before. She was unhappy. She left. She went to a new place, and she was happy when she got there, but it wasn't long before she was unhappy. So now she was back to the original place that she wasn't happy. You hanging there with me? So they rehired her a few years later. She was standing with me in the leadership class, unhappy again at the place she was unhappy at originally. She went on to tell me before coming to my class, she was actually once again searching for a new job at a new company. Round and around and around Bob goes, right? Her name wasn't Bob, but I'm just spinning that little quote. But that morning she had opened her eyes and realized she was the problem, because everywhere she went, she had a problem. That takes a lot of humility right there. That's what all this leadership development is about, looking in the mirror and figuring out, how am I responsible? Because I'm responsible for me, you're responsible for you. If your life is not how you want it to be, if your job's not how you want it to be, what you going to do about it? But as a result of her looking in the mirror, she was perfectly positioned to deal with a problem that was causing her all of these problems. She proceeded to tell me she had decided to stay because she now knew she would also be unhappy at her next stop, no matter where it may have been. She decided at that moment to be grateful, but not satisfied. And I'm sure I had taught that lesson in there. She decided to change what needed to be changed, herself. And Socrates says this, a quote from Socrates. He says, "The secret of change is to focus all of our energy not on fighting the old, but on building the new." So she has stopped fighting her old problems and started working on her new problem, which she had figured out was herself. So what was pretty cool about that story was a year after she had been in my class, unhappy, looking for a job again to leave the same company for the second time, a year after that, she and I talked. She said things were a lot better. She was glad she stayed because she felt better too. She also expressed appreciation for the company because they had invested in her by having me there to teach her about leadership. So they invested in her through me. She responded and chose to demonstrate her appreciation for the organization and the leaders by investing in the development of herself. So at the end of the day, life was better for her teammates, her leaders, and because they were all better, the company was better. And that's a perfect example of when leaders invest in the growth and development of their people. She had a lot of time in service there. She had a lot of experience. She had a lot of knowledge. And if they wouldn't have been doing this leadership development session, which they did with everybody in the organization from top to bottom, we took maybe about 1,200 people through 20 people at a time per week. So I did a lot of training there, week after week after week, at different locations in different states. We took their entire workforce, basically, everybody at every level, through a full week of leadership development, personal growth, and learning about lean manufacturing and the principles related to that. And there was about 75-80% of it was leadership development, personal growth development, and the other 20 or 25% was on lean. So the focus was on self. So again, your potential is unlimited. So Bob Chapman says this. He said, business should not be about elites serving other elites. It should be about giving all of our people ways to develop and express their unique gifts. Every person has such gifts. Great leaders know how to uncover them. Pretty powerful stuff. Always be grateful, but never be satisfied. Develop that growth-oriented mindset, not goal-oriented. I'm going to leave you with a quote by Ralph Waldo Emerson. And he says, the purpose of life is not to be happy. It is to be useful, to be honorable, to be compassionate, to have it make some difference that you have lived and lived well. Hope you enjoyed today's episode. Talk to you next time.
Make it happen or someone else will. It might as well be you. Are you serious about taking your career and your life to the next level and beyond? Check out Mac Story's Blue Collar Leadership Series books and others, now available on audio, along with paperback and ebooks at Amazon, iTunes, and Audible. Please visit bluecollarleadership.com to learn about Mac's books, programs, special offers, certifications, and more. Thank you for listening to the Blue Collar Leadership Podcast.